Okay guys, I've got something I need to get off my chest. Something I've realised a while now. And I think I feel ashamed. I don't know how I feel. Final Fantasy thing? I mean, that's always been a thing. That ain't it. I mean, that's always been a factor. I mean, I've been doing that since I was 11. But then I started reading manga. I can't even remember the last time I called them boobs. I call them opie now. I have to face the truth. Incessant hatred in me to instantly say all Western RPGs are shit. And then the anime started. And I'm not even talking about the really cool animes. I'm not even talking about the Full Metal Alchemist. I'm talking High School DxD. I'm talking Data Live. I'm even talking to Love Brew. I love that shit. I'm watching harem animes. I looked around and I realised my house has more Japanese shit in it than it does English at this point. I mean, actually probably most of it's cheap Chinese shit, but still. I've even been speaking about going to Japan with my girlfriend. She doesn't want to go, but I do. And so with all these factors combined, I can but conclude, guys, and I'll say this, and I hope you don't judge me, I have to accept the fact that that was supposed to be much cooler in my head. And so I confess, I think I'm a weeaboo. I don't know. I never thought I'd be a weeaboo. Me? I hated anime. I hated that shit. Now I can't stop. It's an addiction. It's an addiction. Oh God. I'm looking at the spiky Japanese hair. And I think I love it. This is a cry for help. The real reason I started this video is because I realised today that the J in JRPG might be dying, guys. I really think it might. Will anyone else mourn the passing of the J in JRPG? Oh no. Oh no, no, no.
But before I continue, I can already preempt what some of you are going to say in the comment section. But Pokemon Pez, Persona 5 Pez, and you're going to name all of these other JRPG titles. Now, none of them really apply. Pokemon is very popular, yes, and a lot of people also use that to say, oh look, turn-based combat is still popular today. Pokemon is a very niche phenomena. It's niche, it's got a loyal fan base, most of it is on the handheld consoles and that's where it birthed from. It does not apply to the AAA console market as a whole. You can't use what happens with Pokemon to generalise. And then even if we go to some of the other titles like Persona, etc, and the other JRPGs that have been appearing lately, there's not many of them on the AAA console market. They haven't hit 10 million, guys. Now it did recoup because of Final Fantasy XV. When the delay got announced, the 2-month delay, Persona 5 sales actually shot up within 24 hours of the delay being announced. But this does not change the fact that JRPGs are not selling anywhere close to really what Final Fantasy needs. This is the problem with it, guys. Final Fantasy XV, it needs around 10 million sales for it to push those top of the range graphics and for it to be a leader in the gaming industry on the AAA market. Now we could stop the entire argument there and we could say, well, why does Final Fantasy have to do that? Why does it have to continue being the forerunner in technology? Because Final Fantasy always has tried to do that, but unfortunately things have changed. Japan, and I'll show you the figures soon, they're no longer the leaders in the gaming industry. They're not even buying the games on the consoles, at least anyway. They're shifting over to the mobile generation and there's some real evidence for that. And where does that leave Final Fantasy? Well, it leaves it in a rock and a hard place. And you can even see in Final Fantasy XV, again, they tried to make it a forerunner and it had to reach incredible sales, but when Japan aren't buying, they have to sell it to the West. Now I know this all sounds a bit ridiculous because of course it's done that. It sold 5 million in 24 hours, it's pushing now 6 to 7 million, it broke digital download records. On Wikipedia it is now the fastest selling PS4 title, smashing Uncharted 4 completely. So Peasant, fastest selling PS4 title right now, is a JRPG. What are you talking about? Well, while that's all true, and it does give me a slight bit of hope, there's a lot of gamers who have never played a JRPG before who's had their first experience of it with FF15 and perhaps it's given them a flavour or a liking for it. But that's the problem, I really don't think it did. Because Final Fantasy XV, as far as being a JRPG flavour, it wasn't very flavoursome. Now, I'm not saying that Final Fantasy XV wasn't a JRPG, because it was, and to me personally, Final Fantasy XV, it still felt like a Final Fantasy, but it was the least JRPG that we have had in Final Fantasy. There was a hell of a lot of Western influence creeping into that game, and we have to look at why that is, and we have to also ask ourselves, is that a reason that we can attribute as to why it sold so well? And I'm sure Square Enix are going to ask themselves this exact same question. Is it because it shifted away from the real JRPG and did introduce Western elements? Is that the reason why Final Fantasy, which is statistically never really sold above the 6 to 7 million line in its first year sales, they're going to ask themselves, what did Final Fantasy 15 to do to clutch that whole audience that they didn't have before? And there's going to be a hell of a lot of factor to that. We could say, oh, is it because it was in development for 10 years? You know, it was that game with that status of being the game that was in one of the longest development periods ever. It had that legendary, almost kind of mythical status about it. I think that's one of the reasons, but the great number of other reasons that I believe is the reason why 15 has managed to do it, I'm scared to say that a lot of them are because of Western elements throughout the development of Final Fantasy 15, far more than any other Final Fantasy. It was so much more geared towards the West. Square Enix really did push this at us. Tabata many times even spoke about the West and how decisions for Final Fantasy 15 were made based on what they think appeals to us in the West. The biggest example of that is the DLC. Tabata literally said that 15 has the huge DLC structure that it has, with the 6 DLC packs for each and the character stories, because, and I quote Tabata here, we looked at how you do DLC in the West and how it's a much bigger thing over there than it is here in Japan, and how a game does not end after the credits rolls. It continues as long as there is interest. That's right, guys. They think we are head over heels for DLC, and there's a laughable irony in that, because I actually do like DLC, but despite that, it is one of the most complained about things by Western gamers. The paywalls, DLCs, I hate them, DLCs, cash grab, paywall, seller, and yet, like fucking idiots, we still go and buy it. Despite all the complaining, we still buy the DLC, and we buy it in a shit metric ton. So is it any surprise that Japan look at us and they get that impression? So that was why 15 has the DLC it has. And even just looking at the marketing campaign, Uncovered, it went down here in the West. Look at Kingsglaive, look at the celebrities they pulled in for that and how they promoted that event, and then just look at all the events and the ATRs. This hasn't happened with other Final Fantasies. They were in Belgium, they were in Paris, they were in London, and the reason why they are doing all of this is because their core audience has shifted, and it has shifted in a monumental way. I'll quickly talk about the Japanese sales. So Final Fantasy 15 is the fastest selling Final Fantasy game ever, historically, but Japan aren't to be credited for that at all. They've only at this point bought just over 1 million copies of Final Fantasy 15, and that is historically low. Final Fantasy 13, within a week it had sold 1.6 million copies, physical units, and I'll just say this 1 million units, this isn't physical, this is both physical and digital combined. And this is why people were saying 15 has flopped, because we only got the Japanese sales figures. I mean, even Final Fantasy II had managed to sell more, and while we all thought that was just because those were the physical sales, this is sold physically lower but it had broken digital download records, no, even combining those now, Japan, they just haven't bought Final Fantasy, and yet this is the best selling Final Fantasy. So how does that make sense? Well, I mean, this is a global issue. This isn't anything to do with just Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy isn't to blame for this. It is just the Japanese market. They don't have PS4s. Just looking at the figures, the PS2, Japan had bought 21 million of them, and then the PS3, which was out a year longer, only got up to 6.34 million. A huge drop off, and that was really when the era of mobile gaming started shining through. And now if we just look at PS4 now, it's only at 4.2 million as of January the 17th from 2017. So from 21 million to 4.2 million. Now there isn't just Japan, consoles are selling less globally, but none of them are experiencing quite as steep a drop off as what Japan is, and they did say this. Square Enix did say that Tabata said it, that Final Fantasy 15 It could be the game that decides the future of console gaming in Japan. Now that sounds pretty extreme, and of course it's ridiculous to expect a single game or single franchise to somehow reinvigorate an entire console market. It was never going to do it. That's not to say that FF15 didn't boost PS4 sales over there, because it did, but it was never going to recover the market. And the proof's in the pudding, it didn't sell over there. It's sold historically lower than ever, but it's the best selling Final Fantasy. The core audience have flipped. And this sets a dangerous and a scary precedence, because when I see all of these Western elements creeping into Final Fantasy 15, the DLCs that are being implemented because they're literally admitting that they're using Western games as a blueprint, the online multiplayer, the modding, they're now introducing modding to the game. And that's a huge Western thing. And again, none of these as an individual thing I dislike. I like all the things, the car customisations and the Vapid GTA customisations. Yeah, I'm not too bothered by them. On their own at least anyway, but as a whole, as a general direction and what this is indicating, it's a dangerous precedent, and it's one that I don't want to happen. I don't want Western RPG elements creeping into my JRPGs and the JRPGs dwindling, because they are. I mean, look at some of the other elements, the ones I do hate. The open world. Fuck, we are obsessed with open world in the West. Open world, everything has to be open world. The bigger, the better, the more freedom, and they've done it with 15. So bye linearity. Now that this is sold so well, do you think they're going to go back on that? Do you think that any Western gamers who are now new Final Fantasy fans, they're going to want to go through a linear story? And every Final Fantasy has been linear. And again, you guys know my opinion on this. I maintain that is the best way to get an engaging, immersive, flowing story that can be structured at the developer's pace and it can build up to certain plot elements. You know that, but that's now fucking gone because Westerners are obsessed with open world. Now let's move on to the combat system. Oh, you best believe that the combat system is never going back to turn-based ever again. And I know, I've said that turn-based is outdated and I don't think it would work. But the only reason I said that was because I was basing that on what Final Fantasy needs to do now at its current level, at its current production level. If it's going to be a AAA game that's going to push the boundaries of technology and need to sell 10 million units, it won't do that on a turn-based combat system. It simply won't. It has to be action orientated because that's the only fucking thing that Western gamers will buy. Now you might not like that fact and you might still try to be in denial about it, and I wish I could join you on the denial bus because I love turn-based. But I'm a realist. I can fucking see that 10 million gamers are not going to buy a turn-based game. It just isn't going to happen in today's market. There's only 50 million fucking PS4s on the market. A fifth of gamers aren't going to enjoy a turn-based combat game. A third of all gamers are under 18. When have these motherfuckers ever played a turn-based combat game? So at this point, because FF15's done so well and Square Enix are going to have to keep appealing to its new fan base, kiss action-orientated goodbye. Turn-based, I mean. Kiss that goodbye. Action-orientated would be the way to go. And where can that really go? All it can really become is more explosive, more fast-paced. Give Noctis some bazookas. Give him some Power Ranger, Halo, dumb dipshit fucking suit. Oh wait, they've already done that. And why did they do that? Because every Western game has to have a fucking invincible mech suit. Oh wait, no. There's also a Power Ranger movie coming out in the West. How could I forget? And even if we just look outside of Final Fantasy, because this is bigger, this is Square Enix, look at their Tomb Raider games, look at Deus Ex. Who is that selling to? Look at who they just collabed with, Marvel. Marvel is about as Western as you can get, and again, can you really blame them if this is the only way they're going to survive on the AAA stage, if their core audience has left them for mobile games? And they are pushing the mobile games, but they still want to have that presence on the AAA market. Of course they are. Square Enix aren't going to let that go, but the audience has shifted and so will the identity. And I mean, even just looking at the story. So again, like I said, I'm going to reiterate, I liked Final Fantasy. It felt like a Final Fantasy 15. Felt like a Final Fantasy, but barely. It was hanging on by the skin of its teeth because it didn't really have that really out there-ness. I mean, it was kind of out there, but not really. I mean, the Final Fantasies have always gone balls to the walls with its plot devices. Crazy plot devices. Look at 10. His dad is actually a sea squid and he's a dream and she's off to kill herself and there's fireflies and they bring back loved ones. And look at 7, Cloud's a clone of Sephiroth. The whole thing of 8 is that Adia tells Squall and then Squall goes back in time and tells Adia, and that's how Seed forms. And 13, that was crazy and out there. I mean, really, that was a very complex story, and that is what JRPGs really have had. These, I know, besides obviously the waifus and the love triangles, which 15 kept, loved it. But even that was complained about, and this is the thing. Everything that Final Fantasy 15 had that was still the J in JRPG got complained about, got slammed. I look at reviews and everything that was Japanese about that gets complained, because there's so many Western gamers, and even my friends who are really westernized gamers, I love them, but they're FIFA COD arseholes. They played 15, and guess what they complained about? They complained about the convoluted story, even though 15 was one of the most basic JRPGs. They simplified the story so much that anyone could understand it, but it doesn't matter, because here in the West, that's all we complain about is convoluted stories. Every other fucking reviewer, I mean, I think most reviewers just type by default convoluted. Convoluted, didn't understand it, therefore it's bad. And do not think that's why Tabata said, oh yeah, we're now rewriting the story, we're trying to simplify it to make it a more simplistically presented story. Do you not think that was in response to FF13? And its biggest complaint here in the West was it's convoluted, or one of the biggest complaints beside the linearity. They don't complain about it in Japan. They love it, they eat that shit up. Final Fantasy 13, they loved it. You don't get complaints about a convoluted story over there. It really showed in Final Fantasy 15 when they did move away from those more outlandish JRPG plot devices, the ones that we had been teased in trailers that were there in Versus 13. Remember the rumours that they were going to see ghosts of dead peoples, and they were going to slowly become more and more violent and aggressive, and then their soul would get sucked into the void, and then demons would inhabit them, and you'd forget your loved ones, and all this crazy out there stuff. It was all gone by the time the final product of Final Fantasy 15 came in. People still complain even now about Noctis's hair. I've seen genuine complaints about the JRPG hair. There's so classic Japanese character modelling hair on his head, yet it is so complained about. Even the love triangle between Iris, Luna and Noctis, I mean, it wasn't really even that much of a love triangle. Go to Final Fantasy VII if you want to see a full-on love triangle, but they've always teased with these little crushes. And I've seen the huge complaints that, oh, this is so disrespectful. Iris knows Noctis is off to get married and she's still flirting with him. I fucking hate this story. I've seen it. I've seen it. Oh, come on, for fuck's sake. This is what Japanese games do. But when every element that I can still identify as Japanese in 15 is getting complained about, and Square Enix are really going to have to keep pandering to the feedback from the West because they're the new audience. We could honestly see Western gamers take over their influence, especially when the age of the internet is stronger than ever, social media is stronger than ever, and developers are more in touch with their base more than ever. And I've said, that sounds like a good thing, but I hate it. There's a downside to it as well, being that connected with the fan base, because now they're going to be listening to feedback. And unfortunately, I look at the majority of Final Fantasy 15 players, almost half of them who have never played a Final Fantasy, and they're going to be influencing what the next Final Fantasy is going to look like. Guys, picture it. Picture what it's going to look like. It will look like an unrecognizable shit show. That's what it will look like. Like I saying in this title, is the J in JRPG dying? Yes, I really think it could be. I don't think it's dead, but I think it's dying. I think it's going out the door, and that does sadden me because Final Fantasy, it was the last bastion of light. It was one of the last RPG bastions of hope for JRPGs to still be relevant on a AAA size and scale. And as much as I want to sit here and celebrate that a JRPG has just become the fastest selling product on the PS4, like it has, I can't, because I can see that the reason why it sold that was because it introduced so many elements that Final Fantasy typically hasn't had. And I know that Square Enix are clever enough to reflect and review on that exact same point and exactly what this particular title did that other Final Fantasy didn't do, and they will continue to do it. But there is another path. Believe it or not, I'm not just here to complain, and I'm actually listening to myself now and I realise, holy crap, Peasant, when the hell did you become a hipster? I'm literally going to sound like one of those, you remember those old FF1 to 4 hipsters, or 1 to 6 hipsters, and they would just hate on anyone who said they liked 7, 8, 9 and 10. And Final Fantasy back in my day on the 2D sprites. I'm sounding like that guy now. But I'm going to be that old craggy bastard going, I remember when
it was linear, and I remember when it was turn-based combat, and these were the good old days.
I know that things have to evolve and move forward, but not in such a way that you lose identity. And Final Fantasy, despite somehow being so vastly different between titles, it still managed to do it. And I think the thing that connected all of those Final Fantasies, despite them having vastly different worlds and vastly different styles, was that it did keep that J in JRPG. But as I was just going to say, there is another direction, there is another route. Make Final Fantasy niche. Scale it back, scale back the development, go back to earlier engines, stop trying to make it a forerunner, engines that work, and have far more modest ambitions with your Final Fantasy. And if you do scale them back, then you're only going to a point where you're only going to need 6 to 7 million sales to suffice, a number that Final Fantasies have typically sold, 6 to 7 million. Revert it back to that, and that way you can keep your identity, because Final Fantasy, its name alone and its brand recognition and its status, that alone would always sell 6 to 7 million. I swear it to you guys, if they released a game that was kind of done like 7, 8 or 9, I mean, or even 10, of course they would never do this, but if they did, if they made the FF16 and they really focused on fleshing out the story and it did look like 7, 8 or 9, even in that crazy scenario, that would never happen. If they did that still and they released it on the PS4 and Steam, it would sell 6 to 7 million, I guarantee it. So that could be a route. Make it far more niche, but in a way that it doesn't have to sell so much, so it can keep its brand identity, because then you're not having to sell 10 million bloody units and have to make it appeal to people who quite frankly have never played a Final Fantasy and couldn't give a flying fuck. They just played it because you sold them enough on the bloody trailers, you made the action look snazzy enough and dramatic enough, and you had the big old Titan fight, and that's cool because every game that has just a super giant monster fight, just a colossal fight, just looks amazing. I'm just gonna buy it. Pull out of that, and yes, I know that means that Final Fantasy, for once in its life, it won't be a forerunner. It always has been. But honestly guys, at this point, it can't keep being the forerunner. It just isn't sustainable. Times have changed. Gaming climates have changed. It's more toxic now than ever has been. This rivalry between these big multi-billion video game corporations, it's killing gaming. And I'm going to link a video to these guys. I'll leave a link because I won't go into this. This talks about how it's statistically proven that games are getting worse every single year. In both customer satisfaction, in scores, in reviewing scores. I think last year only 20 games got above 9 out of 10. 2018 there was less than half of that. Then you look at how many games have been coming out incomplete or getting cancelled or getting delayed. You look at the costs, they're spiraling out of control, and the whole market is just an absolute clusterfuck. And it's showing in customer satisfaction. People aren't happy. It's showing in console sales. I mean, of course the PC is majorly to do with that. 40% have now shifted over to Steam and PC gaming, but it doesn't change that the industry is unhealthy at the moment. This competition, this scrambling for sales, games that are coming out incomplete, or games that are being sold on the promise of an epic looking trailer, and then they pick it up and they find out it's only got 5 to 6 hours of mainline campaign, because it actually turns out those graphics were too good to be true, and they're basically just technological showcase games. There was nothing decent or lengthy or lasting about it. It was just a hack, because the simple fact is, when you're trying to push that kind of level of visuals, getting up to a 40-hour mainline campaign is a nigh on impossibility. But that's the standard that you have, Square Enix, with Final Fantasy. And is it any wonder that you dipped to only 21 hours, a historical low for this franchise? And at this point, I'm just going to say, in before someone says, but The Witcher 3, Peasant. I know The Witcher 3 was a big game, but I'm going to say those cutscenes, they're not impressive. People keep saying there's a really big story, but you look, I've played it. I've played the game, I've seen it, almost every cutscene, 80% of them is just Geralt stood there stationary, talking to 1 to 2 other NPCs maximum. They're stationary as well, and I'm not criticising them for it. No, Project Red, I'm actually praising them for it. Project Red did that because that was within their means. That's how they had to present the story, so they could get out a lengthy, good quality, rewarding experience. But we've seen with FF13 that Square Enix are capable of being far above that. I mean, I don't care what you think of 13, look at the cutscenes. There were so many of them, and every single one was just beautifully pre-rendered. Detail was on point in the lip syncing, in the expressions, in the eye movements, in just the detail, the capes, the hair, everything spot on, start to finish. A level of detail that FF15 most certainly did not have. It really didn't. Half the time the movements were jerky, the lip syncing was out, and what was the trade-off for that? The trade-off was the open world. Of course FF13 could do that because it ran with linearity, and it's much easier to deal with the corridors. It doesn't have anywhere near as many technical challenges as what an open world has. So that was the trade-off there, guys. The trade-off was in quality and detail in the characters and character development, and it was all a trade-off for open world. And in the toxic gaming market today, there are just too many trade-offs. Trade-offs for that extra little bit of visual, that extra little bit of polygon detail crammed into their hair. And the game has to be packed full with a metric list of things that pretty much any Western gamer must have in their game, or they simply won't purchase it. And a lot of them are just very trivial, like I said guys, vapid GTA style customizations, online modes. And that's why this video, I just remembered their name, Pretty Good Gaming. These guys are pretty sweet, so I'll link to you to their video. And it shows that the best era for gaming was the PS2, and they even go on to attribute the games that made that best era where satisfaction was the highest, sales was the highest, and it was because of games. They quote, like Metal Gear Solid 2, Max Payne, the original Halo, GTA 3. Let's not forget Smash Bros. Melee. Oh god, the hours I clocked into that. And they also say Final Fantasy 10. And there's a whole host of reasons why that was the best era, and why they say that was the best era. One of them, just to give you a little teaser if you ever want to go check that video out, is that the PS2s weren't hooked up to the internet. There was no way to introduce DLC and bug fixes after the fact. So developers, when they released a game, if it had any issues, they were there to stay, and there was no way to fix it. Now that developers, they can release day one patches, they can release future DLC, they have no motivation to bring out finished products anymore. And it's just pissing off the players, it's pissing off the gaming community. That's why games aren't getting above 9 out of 10, that's why it's slashed in half. Unfinished products that can no longer get above 9 out of 10. And I'm really sad to say this, but that's what you are, Final Fantasy 15. I really hoped you would be above this. I thought you would be better than this, but you are an unfinished project. You are scoring a 7.7 out of 10. I think that's harsh, but of course I'm a Final Fantasy fanboy, I will say that. But you're certainly not getting anywhere close to a 9 out of 10. So you've become just another one of the flock of games that took ages to develop, took years and years, and left the fanbase blueballed. And when you finally did come out the door, you were unfinished. And this is because, like I said, it's that toxic gaming climate. It's the competition. It's developers trying to push games realistically that are just way too ahead of their time. Trying to push technology that the bloody base console can barely even support. I mean, they're maxing that out. Now, I'm not going to say that they haven't always tried maxing out the consoles. They always have. They've always pushed the PS1. They always pushed the PS2 to its limits. They've always flogged the damn horses, but technology is more powerful now than ever. And I mean, even back on the PS1, they used to pump out games every 1 to 2 years. They even admitted back then, back on the PS1, it was so much easier to change things. I mean, and they used to do it with FF7. Many times they changed an entire chapter because the director would come and go, oh yeah, I've had a different idea, let's take it down this route instead. Okay, we'll just work on this for a month and change it. You can't do that now. You try flipping up a chapter now, you've just added an extra 7 to 8 months onto the development time of that game. And Final Fantasy, it can either remain caught up in this cyclone of games, unfinished games and just problematic games because they're just trying to push it too far, or it can pull out. It can stop trying to compete with the big boys. Again, like I said, go niche. And I know that would be hard because Final Fantasy does have that status of being, it would be a dramatic thing for Final Fantasy to do. And sure, it definitely will lose sales. And it definitely won't grab some of the new generation, but at the end of the day, do we want them when the only reason they're coming to the game Is it because they have any passion or love for the franchise, or what a Final Fantasy is truly about and what us the fans like and what its identity is? They're just coming to it because it's a big title and it looks good, and that's all they give a fuck about. And the thing is, they're not even gonna play it. It's a statistical fact that 9 out of 10 games do not get completed now. So they're not even completing it. The only ones who are going to complete 15 and 13 and other Final Fantasy titles are the hardcore fan base. It is the loyal fans, the ones who actually love Final Fantasy for what it is. So it really comes down to, who do you want to keep? Do you want to get the new fans, or do you want to keep us the old and keep us happy? You know, do you want Final Fantasy to be a loving wife to us old fans? You know, cooking apple pie, white picket fence, looking after the dog. I'm sorry, I realise that's really misogynist for me to say that. Or do you want Final Fantasy to be some dirty street walking hoe who got banged by some dude who didn't love her? He just spent 40 quid on it, and he's going to move on to the next one in a couple of days and spend 40 quid on that and bang that hoe and just bang all these dirty ass hoes. Don't make Final Fantasy a hoe. Don't make it just a Western hoe. Ho ho ho. Oh no no no. Do not do that, Square Enix. Scale it back, niche it so you can keep the identity. You can keep it a JRPG, and honestly I'm going to say it, yep, go linear, go back to linear. Every Final Fantasy has always been linear, it fucking has. I don't want to have this argument in the comment section again, because every time I say that I have to argue with someone who doesn't understand why 7, 8 and 9 were not open world games. A return function does not make it open world. I even had to tell someone that Final Fantasy X wasn't open world. They argued with me that FF10, because you can go back to any area after the game, is open world. Holy fuck, come on. That's not open world. When you get to a point where you're saying that FF10 is open world, you've just gone full retard at that point. I know open world seems great, and again, I know I say all these things, and I'm saying this out of love for the franchise. I'm saying it out of love because I want it to move in a good direction. And I'm just preempting at this point. I'm not actually complaining about it because I liked the open world in FF15. I liked it, but I can see what it came at the sacrifice of. Remember guys, 20-hour mainline story, a historical low for this series, but it had 80 hours of optional content. 20 hours mainline, 80 optional. That is fucked up. That is not Final Fantasy. I don't want 80 hours of optional content. I don't want to be running around with quests coming out my arsehole. In fact, I don't give a crap about optional content. I loved FF13 because it didn't have any of that. I'm tired of optional content. I don't know if I'm alone. Let me know in the comment section below, but I couldn't give a pissy fuck about optional content. It can all go. I really couldn't give a monkeys about questing if it means that I'm going to come away from another Final Fantasy feeling unfulfilled. No, not having characters' motivations fleshed out. No, feeling like, oh, I just wish I saw a little bit more of that character, and just an eternal nagging that there was so much potential that was just on the horizon and just didn't get reached. Because Square Enix are now using Western games as a blueprint, and that means open world and fetch quests. Fetch quest after fetch quest after fetch quest. Followed in by hunt the frogs, hunt the traps, and another fetch quest. And if you don't think you can do that, Square Enix, if you don't think that you can go back, if you can sell those numbers without making it open world and action orientated combat and really changing Final Fantasy's identity, well then that's what you need to do. You need to not try to sell that much. If you don't think you can make 10 mil without changing the core principles and the core identity of Final Fantasy, the whole thing that brought us, the fan base, to love this franchise, I mean, come on guys, we are the ones who built this franchise. Square Enix, you have us to thank. I don't want that to come across as entitled, but we're the ones who made this franchise. And if you can't sell that many without changing the core principles, then you just don't change the core principles. It's how it is right now. It was still Final Fantasy. It brought in enough elements to interest a new audience. I think the FF7 remake is really going to do that as well. It's going to change things in a way that's going to interest a new audience. Again, that's going action combat, and I don't have a problem with that. Of course, I do want new fans coming in. That's how this franchise will survive, but just don't change the core principles too much. I think you got away with it with FF15. I'm just preempting a general direction, guys. So this is really all just preemptive, and none of these things I hate individually. You know, I don't hate action combat. God damn, I've got some dick in my throat. I don't hate the open world. I'm just scared of the direction, and perhaps I should give the West more credit. Perhaps I shouldn't be hating on them. Perhaps Square Enix, you should also have more confidence in your product. Perhaps you should, keep the J in JRPG, keep the identity, and have confidence in the Final Fantasy. Have confidence that it's a fantastic franchise and that today's generation of gamers, they can come to love it without you having to sell it to them in a really vain and superficial way. Have confidence that if you hadn't have made Final Fantasy, if you hadn't introduced certain flashy elements to FF15 and you'd focused on, I don't know, some romantic scenes between Luna and Noctis and made it really cutscene-y and fleshed out and far more of a story game. I know I do blame you motherfuckers who say you hate FF13. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say I blame some of you. I can respect that you don't like it, and some of you express your disliking for FF13 in a modest way. You just say, I don't like it, which is fine. But some of you motherfuckers who don't like FF13, you scream about it in every fucking post. You scream about it from the rooftops. No, that I've seen posts where it's been, what's better, 7, 8, 9 or 10. And you just come in, oh, at least it's not FF13, just so you can trigger people who actually liked FF13 because you fucking love engaging in FF13 debates and you feel the need to bring it up at every single conversation that's Final Fantasy related. Your FF13 hatred, did it really make you that fucking salty? Did it really hurt you that much? Can you not just respect that some people love it? Because unfortunately, you're complaining about 13. I do believe that is why a hell of a lot of elements changed between FF13 and 15. You calling it weeb shit. Weeb shit. Yes, that is what people are calling it, weeb shit, because so many people, their first Final Fantasy was FF13 and they just call it weeb shit. Well, yes, I suppose it is weeb shit because what you're saying is it's a JRPG. And JRPGs do have a narrative that to some Western gamers can come across as corny and as exaggerative. Every single JRPG, it does have that cute lolly type character and she is quite eccentric and out there. This is traditional JRPG style characterizations, and when you're complaining about that, and you complain about how complex its story was, yes, you are changing Final Fantasy because FF13 was a Final Fantasy, it just was. Again, you are entitled to hate FF13. Okay, if you didn't like it, you didn't like it. But I was saying this in my other stream, people who just complain about things too incessantly without actually giving any constructive alternatives, without you giving anything constructive to it. It's just when you want to hate something, you just hate it too much. For example, you can either just shout from the rooftop that you hate fucking linearity in 13 and you hate the corridors, and you can scream that so loudly that Square Enix actually did listen. That's why they tried to make 13.2 and Lightning Returns open world, and they pretty much did. And then they went, let's go even further, let's make 15, let's fuck everything, fuck story, fuck characterization, fuck fleshing out, let's just make this open world because everyone just screamed so loudly about the linearity in 13. Well, perhaps if you didn't just scream like a fucking baby and you actually gave constructive criticisms and some feedback like I do. I always point out the things I love and the things I dislike. That's why I'm even doing this video, because I love Final Fantasy and I love Final Fantasy 15, but it's not going to stop me speaking about what it didn't do right, because that is tough love. That is tough love, guys. That's giving feedback because you love it and you want it to improve. So I've given constructive alternatives. But if you hated the linearity in 13, you should have been more specific. What did you specifically hate about it? Did you actually hate that it was, pretty much balls to the walls, immersive in the story, and it pretty much never resurfaced at any point? So it didn't lead you off on 20-hour optional content campaigns? Is that what you're saying you wanted? In 13, did you want to go off and do 30 hours of optional content and fetch quests at some given point? Is that what you're saying? Or are you actually saying that you just didn't like how narrow the corridors were, and then you just want them to widen them out a bit? Kind of like how 7 between Midgar and Calm. Now that's still a linear corridor, it's still a linear walk, but it's just much wider. So are we talking about the width of the corridor so you don't feel so confined? Or are you complaining about linearity when you actually don't mean it? You haven't even thought about it enough. So you're actually changing elements of a game and you're giving feedback to Square Enix and having them change your games in a way that you haven't even thought about. And I'll give you an example as to why people don't even fucking think about it. They complain about the linearity in FF13, but they say they love Final Fantasy X. Then you don't have an issue with linearity because the corridors are the same. I'm talking the same width, the same structure. It opens up into the Calmlands and into Pulse at the exact same time. Everything is identical in those two games in terms of linearity. So, but the difference is that 10 has more NPCs, it has more town stop-offs. You come across more villages and more events. You know, it's not quite so isolated like 13 is, where you really are just the team and you're on the run and you're just out there and you don't really ever come across any cities ever. In which case, that's what you need to be specific on. You need to say, oh, I didn't like that there weren't towns and people to meet and stuff like that. And exploring more of the world and the culture of that world, which 10 really did do. It looked at the culture. And you need to be that specific. No, instead of just blathering like a moron on the internet that you'll hate an element of the game that you actually found perfectly acceptable and likable in another game. You need to be that specific, because I'm telling you guys, Square Enix, they do, for all of their flaws, they listen to the fans, and they have. We've visibly seen them make changes in FF15 based on what we asked for. We asked for airships in an ATR. We asked for Moogles. The age of the internet is strong enough now that developers are listening to their fans, and if you're not going to be specific and you're just going to rant and whinge, then you're not going to make any progress for this franchise, and in fact you're going to change things in a really negative way, or in a way that you didn't actually intend it or even want it to change, because you didn't realize it. You know, it is our responsibility, and I know most of you peasants listen to the channel because you are some of the most positive Final Fantasy fans I have ever met, and that's what I love about this channel. But it is, because Square Enix are listening, it is our responsibility to give responsible feedback, accurate feedback, for all of us to reflect on what we do and don't want. And again, you can say things like, oh no, I really want airships in 15 back when we didn't have them, but we have to even be responsible for that. You know, with the way games are now, we can't just ask for everything. When we knew, again, airships in FF15 was going to be a huge technical challenge that was going to consume a hell of a lot of resource to do it, Square Enix's own words, you have to remember that things come at the expense of other things. I know, it's sad. It is. You know, back in like 7, 8 and 9 days when you could have everything because it was so easy to implement these elements, it's not anymore. Now, any kind of element that you ask to be in this game will take months, nearly, in fact, possibly even up to a year's worth of work and development to get that in. So we have to be responsible in what we ask for, because it really does change things. If you're one of these people who say, and there are many of them who say, oh, Square Enix have lost direction with Final Fantasy, it's lost direction. Well, is it any surprise? When things are changing as fast and rapidly as they are, and we're coming into a new era of gaming, and so many fans themselves, especially the negative ones, they can't even decide within themselves what they do and don't want. They contradict themselves and their own desires. They unknowingly say things that are actually working against their interests. And this is why for a long time I've said that I really don't like Square Enix listen to the fans. I like them to have the Nomura approach. I call it the Nomura approach because Nomura, he doesn't do all the ATRs and the fan interactions and shit. He has a vision and he goes for it 100%, and I like that. That's what I actually like about Nomura, is he will go with his vision, and that's how you get true brilliance, and that's what makes a great game. It is when it's innovative and unique, and I really don't think fans are capable of suggesting anything truly unique. We just have to look at all the Q&As. I remember cringing almost at every single fucking Q&A because every question was just so bland. Are we gonna climb? Are we gonna get Moogles? Can we go under the water? Can you work on that, Square Enix? Oh well, it would take about a year of work for us to get Noctis with underwater physics and swim. That would take a hell of a lot of work. Oh no, we still want it. We want underwater combat. Oh my god, guys, come on, please. What the fuck is that? But that's it. I'm done. These are just my thoughts, my concerns. Let me know if you agree in the comment section below. I just see where the ship is steering, and I think it's possibly dangerous, but I'm going to end this video on a positive note. I think Square Enix are clever enough to know that keeping Final Fantasy, keeping it identifiable, keeping it, something that we've all loved, keeping it the franchise we fell in love with and recognisable, I think they know that. In fact, they said it many times, and it always gave me real confidence when people like Tabata, he went and he spoke to Sakaguchi. He said he sat down for about 4 hours with Sakaguchi over a meal, and they spoke about it, and he asked the man himself, the Gooch himself, how to keep the spirit of Final Fantasy. The spirit of it. So that gives me huge confidence that they had that in the forefront of their mind. Again, I think they did it with Final Fantasy 15. I think they did keep it. And we still have a lot of the Final Fantasy legends on board. So, like the remake, with Nomura on board with that. No one knows Final Fantasy better than Nomura. So I have great hope that everything I'm saying about that it could become this absolute westernized clusterfuck of a game. I have confidence that what I'm saying is hugely exaggerative. It will never happen. That I'm just being a nervous Nancy for nothing, preempting where this is going. But I think it's still good to be aware that these issues, Square Enix do have these issues to tackle, and while they are still trying to make it a Final Fantasy and trying to keep the nature of it, which is a really tough thing for them to do, really is very, very difficult for them to do, and I understand all of the issues that they have and how difficult it is for them, and that's why I wanted to do this video and to explain it in as much depth, to really say that it is also our responsibility to help them steer that vision and give that vision. I mean, there's even a survey going on at the moment. I might try to find a link for it. They are asking for feedback. Square Enix are. There's the survey and they will listen to it. And that's why I implore everyone who does that survey, be really clear on what you want. Be really clear on what you ask for. And most importantly, be constructive. If you do criticize any points, just be constructive on what would have done better rather than just being critical. But definitely still be critical. That is very important. Otherwise, you do it an injustice. If you just try to cover those points and just talk about the things you did like and ignore the things you didn't like because you want to overly praise the game, you're doing the game a disservice and you're doing the franchise as a whole a disservice. And we all want to see this beautiful franchise endure. So there it is, guys. Let me know in the comment section below. I expect this video to be pretty unpopular, but I'm really glad I've done it. So thanks if you made it all the way to here. It was nice chatting with you, and I definitely want to hear some of your thoughts and feedback in the comment section below. Until the next video, goodbye!